All right, so we have Adam Schefter joining us, and this episode of Not for Long Media is going to be brought to you by, the interview is going to be brought to you by Wealth Advisory Services, a personalized approach to managing your wealth. Adam Schefter, how you doing today?
Well, Colin, you got sponsors and everything, huh?
Yeah, man. I'm official. I'm trying to be official. I'm trying to be like yourself. You have a wonderful podcast. Can you talk to our fans about your podcast?
Well, I appreciate you saying that. The Adam Schefter podcast. We had on Tom Brady's trainer this week. I'm sure he'll be disappointed to hear he thinks that Tom's going to play at least 2 more years. So we'll see about that. But I was just interested in reaching out to Alex Guerrero to see what it is that has enabled Tom to play as long as he has. And he's a marvel. And hearing Alex talk about the mental, spiritual, physical side of everything, they all feed off each other. It was kind of interesting. So anybody that hasn't heard it yet, recommend it. The Adam Schefter podcast.
I've listened to it several times. I've listened to it flying across, the country to go to games. I've tuned in. I love it. I think what you do is a little bit different than your normal sports podcast. And I know that just sounds like cliche and everybody says I'm trying to be different, but you have great guests on, you have great conversation, you have friends on, you have different things, and you have these type of relationships with people for doing this for so long that it's personal. It's not really Adam on TV. It's Adam on the mic.
Well, I appreciate saying that. And again, I never know who's listening, and I don't even know how other people do podcasts. No disrespect. I don't listen to very many podcasts at all.
What do you have time for? What do you do? Like when I was doing my prep, I'm like, I want to ask Adam, like, who is Adam Schefter? Because we know Adam Schefter, the man who's breaking news, top in all sports world, in the world, period, when it comes to what you do. But we never see you. We're going to get into your books, but who is Adam Schefter? Where you're from? I know you went to Northwestern in Michigan, and just tell us a little about what's going on in your life right now.
Well, it's not a temple education, but it's not bad, Colin, right? That's the way it kind of goes. Honestly, I'm just a reporter who's living a life, married, 2 kids, 5 dogs. Honestly, trying to just get by day to day, deal with all the frustrations of life, like everybody else, all the things that come your way. I am fortunate that I love my job. It allows me to do something that I enjoy doing. So today, when there's all sorts of things going wrong in the house and some of the bushes are dying and one of the dogs has to go to the vet for a broken shoulder and my wife's dealing with some of that, I get to come on TV and go and get up in NFL Live and talk about Aaron Rodgers or whatever it may be. So I'm blessed in that regard, but I'm not any different than anybody else dealing with everyday life, right?
No doubt. And we all have great support systems. And it's funny you bring up your wife, my wife, especially in the football world, and that's the world we live in. There's always the backbone that allows us to do what we do, because if you don't have it, we want to have families, we want to have all these things, but without our wives, you can't do it. You physically cannot have it. So talk about your wife, your impact on your family and allowing you to do what you do.
Well, how long have you been married for, Colin?
Couple weeks.
Well, congratulations. Where was the wedding?
Cape May, New Jersey, where I live right now.
Very nice. And is your wife connected to sports in any kind of way? Does she understand how it works?
Oh yeah. So she played women's lacrosse at Florida, and was an All-American and through high school. And yeah, she made it to the top of that profession pretty much. And yeah, so she gets it 100%.
Oh yeah. So yeah, she knows. And so what is she going to be doing now?
She's an in-home physical therapist.
Well, good for you. It sounds like you married a winner.
Oh, she's unreal. She's unreal. Everybody knows that listens to this podcast who Sydney is. She's the best.
Were you guys high school sweethearts?
We weren't. So when I started my career at the University of Florida, I was there 2 years and then was medically disqualified. Had a broken right foot twice, broken left foot, and they released me. And we met down there. She played lacrosse there. So we met there. We stayed together through the Temple years, all crazy, Giants, Bears, Birmingham Iron, in the AAF, Tampa Bay, Vipers in the XFL, and then now Carolina.
So what keeps you going like that then? That's great. Like to all those stops and year after year bouncing around, right? Like that's not an easy thing to do.
No, but you know what? It makes it nice when Adam Schefter tweets Colin Thompson signing to the Carolina Panthers active roster. You probably don't even remember September 7th. I just looked it up, 2020, because that's what makes it worth it. It's been quite the journey. And honestly, if I made the team or not, it still wouldn't have been worth it. But it's quite the grind, as you know. And being, the fourth tight end or being the third tight end or whatever my role is something I really take tremendous pride in. I was able to play for Coach Rule in college and really know what he wants done and how it needs to be done, and his culture. And I thought I was brought in for those types of things, and then I was brought in for other things, and it took off. And I had a great role and played over 300 snaps last year with Carolina, and it was just tremendous. So what keeps me going? I don't know. I just don't know anything else, I guess, and that's why I grind through it. But yeah, you tweeted that out one day, and I was going through the comments today, and the comments are fantastic because no one knows who I am. I had one catch in the XFL. I had 3 or 4 catches my senior year in high school. In my senior year in college, I'm primarily a blocking tight end.
Yeah.
And so I love the comments.
You know what's interesting about that is that sometimes you just tweet something and you don't even recognize that it impacts somebody at all. And so that to me, I find interesting. I also find interesting you're doing this podcast. Now, I have a producer, great producer named Christina Buswell. Do you have anybody helping you? Like, is your wife behind the wall there? Like, is it just
she's right now. She's actually right on the other side of that eagle. No, I'm kidding. We have multiple. I have 2 producers. Really everyone's a part of the social media team.
Yeah.
We have people ranging from Mexico City to New Orleans to Annapolis, Maryland to Philadelphia to Cape May, New Jersey. So,
well, I guess if you have sponsors, you're big time, right?
Well, that's not true. I just have some friends that like me, and they're.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, man, we're grinding away at it. We really are. But yeah, it's funny that you tweet though. Like, you're always tweeting about the big names, and that's the way it should be. That's your job. But for me, like, that tweet was massive. Like, that was people reacted. Like, if someone just Carolina Panthers tweeted it that I signed, like, people were ecstatic. But your tweet, because of the impact behind it, I looked up 11 million followers total you have amongst all your social media outlets. It blew up. I mean, it blew up. My phone blew up after that, and my social media did as well.
Well, it's kind of neat. I appreciate sharing that. It's kind of nice to hear. I guess I could only equate it to back when I was in high school, going to high school on the South Shore of Long Island, and I was like the last guy on the basketball team, and I didn't play very much. Everybody else played more than I did, but every now and then I would find my way into the game. And the great thing about the local newspaper Newsday at the time was if you scored a basket, they had basically a box score of everyone who scored. So if you scored a basket, it was proof that you, Adam Schefter, got into a game and played in Newsday. And it didn't happen very often, but every now and then it did happen.
Parents are they're gonna eat dinner over.
Okay. You got wives coming in, right? You know how it works, right?
Well, who is that?
I'm on a podcast right now.
Oh shit.
That's good. That's quality podcasting right there.
Exactly.
You know what's funny? It's funny, Adam, and we'll circle back. Like, the cursing thing, we're gonna hurdle that. Like, I've said my first curse word too, like on live air, like radio. Like, that was a big deal. Like, for your profession, you can't say anything. I've had friends with Kevin Agandi, like Kevin and I've talked about this before. Kevin's like, yeah, I just like turn it on and off. Have you ever slipped up?
Never. Well, there's actually one funny story. Am I allowed to tell it on the podcast?
Absolutely.
I actually don't. I don't even know that I want to share it because I'd be afraid that it could come out then and someone would find the clip. But I'll just say this. How about this? This would be pretty easy. One time I was doing a show. I'm not going to say what show, and we were talking about Teddy Bridgewater. But when I pronounced his name, for some reason, it didn't come out Teddy. It just didn't. And we were rolling over video, so I don't think a lot of people picked it up. But if I had been on camera and said what I said, I don't know how it just like came out as, TI, DDY. Like, I still don't know how that happened, but it did. And I was like, oh my God. Like I knew right when I said it. And Mort was sitting right, and he said swings. I'm like, so yeah, that happened.
That's great. We'll circle back though. So, and we're going to talk about Mort too, because he's a legend.
Yeah, he is.
So take us back to high school. Take us back growing up in that area, Long Island, outside the city. Are you a New York sports fan? Did you dream of covering sports? What was your relationship with sports? You mentioned basketball as well. I know you're a big fan.
Yeah, well, I grew up a huge sports fan. I was never good enough to really play sports very well and to do the kind of things that you did. But I always thought it was just incredibly intriguing and fascinating. And so I went to the University of Michigan, And as I tell a lot of people, I went out for fraternity my freshman year, 1985, way back when. There were about 50 guys going for about 10 spots. Didn't get offered one. I was disappointed. So I went down to the football office to see if they needed somebody to pick up jock straps and hand out water bottles, and they didn't need anybody. So I went to the basketball office to see if they needed somebody to do that, and they didn't need anybody. And when the fraternity didn't want me or need me, and the football office didn't want me or need me, and the basketball office didn't want or need me, I'm like, well, what can I do? I got to do something here. Like, what am I going to do? And I said, let me go try the student newspaper. And it was literally a whim. It was nothing that was premeditated. I didn't go to Michigan to major in journalism. I didn't go there thinking, boy, I'm going to go write for the school newspaper. It was only because I had all that rejection in front of me that left me despondent that I went down to the student newspaper, volunteered there, began writing, and one thing led to another. And here I am on the Colin Thompson podcast.
Wow. And yeah, it's a great segue too with Colin Thompson. Not for Long Media podcast is brought to you by Wealth Advisory Services. This interview in particular, Wealth Advisory Services, Adam Schefter. If you don't know them, you should. A customized approach to managing your wealth, wealthadvisoryservices.com. So Big Blue, what was your experience there? I mean, who was a quarterback there back in the day? I mean, I know Brady's old, but he's not that old.
You know, the quarterback was my freshman year?
Harbaugh.
Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh was the quarterback of Michigan when I was a freshman. And I always remember my friends and I still talk about it to this day. They were playing Ohio State in Michigan. Jim Harbaugh dropped back on the third down play, got clobbered at the middle. I think it was William White. He threw a long pass to John Colzar. He caught it. And John Colzar was running right at the student section, right at the freshman. We're all going crazy. They beat Ohio State with this big play. And it's one of those plays that just stays with you your entire life. That was my freshman year. They later went on. They were always a good team. They were never a great team. The quarterback my senior year was a guy by the name of Demetrius Brown, a left-handed quarterback from Florida. A guy like by the name of Mike Taylor. I think that's right. Mike Taylor and Demetrius Brown. Brady came after me. I set the table for him, Colin. I made it possible for Tom to go to Michigan and excel and shine the way he did, right? If I hadn't gone there and paved the way for him, he definitely would not be who he is today. And you can tell him I said that. You can tell him I said that.
I will.
Put that clip on the Instagram and, at Tom Brady. He knows that without me paving the way, he's nothing today.
So at Entourage, and Doug Ellen, the creator of Entourage, has been on the show.
Doug Ellen went to my high school.
Wow. Do you know Doug?
Yeah, I know Doug.
So Doug came on, but I'm a huge Entourage fan, and all my buddies text me before we play Brady and the Bucs this year. And they're like, go up and ask Giselle if she cooks, because the one episode, Turtle is a big Blue Giants fan, and he wants to go tell Tom Brady to F off because he's a Patriot, obviously. And then he falls in love with them, and they talk about coming over for dinner and just the whole thing. So they're like, hey, go ask Tom if Giselle cooks. I'm like, I'm not going to ask Tom if Giselle cooks, but yeah.
Well, Tom's a great guy, and Doug Ellen went to my high school. And do you know Kenny Dichter, the guy that founded Wheels Up? Have you ever heard the name? He rang the bell.
I follow him on social media.
He went to my high school. And Steve Levy, the Monday Night Football announcer?
Of course.
He went to my high school. And
Mike XFL announcer.
Right. And Mike Greenberg, not Mike Greenberg on Get Up, but Mike Greenberg, who is the Buccaneers vice president, does all their contract salary. He went to my high school. Amy Fisher, the woman that tried to knock off Joey Buttafuoco's wife. You know that story?
No, please tell.
Oh my God. Yeah, the fact that you don't know tells you how young you are. But if you just Googled Amy Fisher and did a search, you would see exactly what she went to my high school. So my high school's put out a lot of people, I guess, a lot of different people.
So you're loaded. That's what you're trying to say.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying it was like this.
I'm just saying the school's loaded with talent,
Yeah. Oh, well, look, I mean, we also have people who went there that went on and didn't do such great things.
Of course.
Like every school. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I'm proud of my fellow Belmore JFK Cougars.
I love that, man. Yeah. Doug Allen. Look at that. So I've had 2 JFK Cougars on the podcast.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Before episode 20, I think you're going to be like 24, 25. So that's, we're big time here, as you can tell.
How you get Doug on the podcast?
So same way I got you on, just, slid into the DMs real creepily and just said, hey, Doug. Now, this was years ago. when I was with the Bears, I got a blue check mark on Instagram, and I just like would just casually comment like on and tag all my buddies in all the videos that Doug was putting out and all the entourage videos and all the funny stuff we used to watch in college and laugh and drink beer together. And Doug just followed me one day out of nowhere. So I just shot him a DM and say, Doug, I love what you do. Love the show. Love the movie. This was like right when the movie came out, I think. And we've been in touch over the years. We played in LA in the XFL. I asked him where to go eat, here and do this. And he's a big food guy. So that's how we just started talking one day. And I asked him to come on. And I actually called in the Victory, the podcast, his podcast, when they had like call-ins. And I just, so yeah.
Colin, we'll get you on at some point this season. I don't know when. We need like a big win, a big play, a big something. Okay, like just something. Okay.
Yeah, last year I had a pretty big something. Yeah, that was like
just something.
I had one catch last year, Adam, for a touchdown. It was against the Bucs.
I hate to say, maybe it's a big Carolina win. Maybe like it's just, it's just something that just gives it a little bit of relevancy, right? Like a hook. A hook. That's what they call it in the news business. So we're looking for
everyone else is going to all the gifts and all the memes and all the stuff when you tweeted Colin Thompson made the 53-man roster. They'll all just come back again like, who the F is this guy? But that's fine by me. Listen, that's fine by me, man.
Maybe we'll put you on there at towards the end of the summer. What it's like to go through Final Cuts.
Yeah, I'd love to. I've been a part of it. I'll probably be a part of it again this year.
Are you worried about that?
It's a great question.
Worry, right?
Yeah, sorry.
You always worry.
Yeah, you're always worried. I mean, it's so funny, and you get to talk to people about your job, my job, and being at the bottom of rosters and trying to make it, and et cetera. And the money's not guaranteed. That's always a fun topic to bring up with people when they're like, you got all the money in the world. I'm like, listen, I signed a $4 million contract with the Giants. I only made $4,500. I mean, that's the nature of the NFL. That's the beast. I've been cut, I don't know, probably a dozen times. I've had almost a dozen workouts and got cut from 90% of them. So that's normal for guys at the bottom of the roster. Yeah. That's nothing abnormal, as you know. So yeah, I would love to come on anytime. Kidding me?
But you probably have all the intangibles that Coach Rule or anybody else is looking for, which is why you've been able to hang on as long as you have and make you more like you're the kind of guy that you want on the football team, right? A try hard, work hard, doesn't screw up kind of guy.
That's what I try to be. And that's what I've been try to be a majority of my career. I played for some great programs. I'll just be honest. I played for some great places that I learned a lot from, and I was willing to listen and learn. That's what I talk to young kids about all the time. Like, what are you like? I'm not standing here because I'm the best athlete on that football field on Sundays. I'm the worst, but just doing your job, the little things, the things that have nothing to do with football, showing up, being on time, giving extra effort, et cetera. So yeah, it's treated me well. It's treated me well in this field too. When I was out of the NFL, I did color commentary for Temple football games and travel with the team, and I would train. Wow. Yeah. Wow. So I work with Paul Palmer, College Football Hall of Famer, and Harry Donahue.
Draft pick of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Correct. Yep. Worked with Paul Palmer and Harry Donahue was in the Ring of Honor at Temple. He calls basketball and football. He's fantastic. Did KYW in Philly for years. That was his deal. And yes, I traveled with the team. I did that. I started the podcast not for long when I got cut from the Giants and had emergency appendectomy, and they told me I was coming back in 2 weeks, and they never brought me back.
Wow.
So I was at home. I was on the couch. I couldn't run, couldn't do any physical activity for a month with an appendectomy pretty much. And they're like, I'm like, wow, you know what? The NFL does stand for not for long. So that's what I'm going to make the podcast.
Who was the head coach then?
Ben McAdoo was the head coach. Yep. And then Kevin Gilbride Jr. was my tight end coach. And then he went to the Bears, was my tight end coach there. And now he's in Carolina. So I know Kevin well. And that's always a fun story for me to be able to go to. And then now Temple, now in Carolina, they're all Temple guys there. So I know all them as well, which is fun.
Carolina's a great place, right?
It is, Adam. I'll say this, and we'll transition to your book here in a little bit because I want to hear some stories behind the book and maybe a little bit about your career too in Denver. But yeah, the Carolinas, we're in the right direction. And that is not a biased opinion. It probably is biased because I'm on the team, but I'm just coming straight up player for player. New team this year, new faces in the building, a lot of them. Second year.
You're a try-hard guy. You bounced around the league a bit, right? Who's one guy on that team, that roster, that when you watch him practice, you're like, oh my God, is this guy good?
Christian McCaffrey. And I don't mean that as because he's the best player, one of the best in the league. He's just unreal. Like to me, I say he's the best player in the NFL. Right? People can say, well, quarterback's tough position in the world times 50. But that guy, he's the best walkthrough football player I've ever seen in my entire life. He's unreal. DJ Moore. I mean, that's the least talked about superstar in the NFL. And people are like, he's a superstar? He's that good. We have a lot of guys. Robbie Anderson. I love our tight end room. Tremble, Dan Arnold, and Ian Thomas, all solid guys that do a lot of different things. Our lines, I'm a big fan of our team. I will be honest with you. Our defensive line, you have Hassan Reddick and Brian Burns. You know, Jeremy Chinn's a monster. Monster, Adam. Like, this Jeremy Chinn guy's real deal. Like Brian Dawkins type stuff. That category. I really think so. It's like the fact that he was a second-round pick, I lift with him after practice some days. The fact that he left the first round is just astonishing to me.
Yeah. I think that Matt Rule probably felt the same way.
Yeah. Right? So let's transition to your book. You have a lot of them. Which one? I want to talk about the one that's based around your family and the man I never met.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Hold on a second. Hold on.
Aaron Rodgers.
Hey, hello? I'm just in a podcast. I got to call you back. Bye.
All right. So where's Aaron Rodgers going?
Oh, he just got traded to Carolina with 2 tight ends. So the Panthers aren't in the tight end market anymore.
I'm out, man. I'm out. I'm going to Green Bay.
Yeah.
They'll cut me right away. I'm going to Green Bay. That was an amazing place to play.
Oh, you played there too, huh?
We played there last year, even though there was no fans, and I still thought it was amazing.
Yeah, there is an aura when you walk into that stadium, right? Like, you just feel the history. You just know that you're in a special place. Yeah. It's a great place to.
We'll finish with your book, but I want to finish with we'll get to some football stuff real quick, and then we'll finish your book. You were in Denver for a very long time, 15 years, covering the NFL, covering the Broncos.
Do you know that when I was in Denver, covering the Broncos for the period of time that you're saying, every summer I would go to training camp with them in Greeley, Colorado, University of Northern Colorado. And I lived in the same dorm room, had the same phone number, 970-351-4192. Still remember the phone number of my dorm room because there weren't cell phones back in those days. And I used to cover Ed McCaffrey, the Broncos Pro Bowl wide receiver. And Ed's family would come visit him all the time. Ed and his 4 boys, his wife, Lisa. And there was little Christian McCaffrey on the sideline running around with his brothers, Dylan and Luke, and his oldest brother, Max. So there were the McCaffrey boys, Max and Christian and Luke and Dylan, and they're all there. And so I remember all these McCaffreys, his little boys running around the training camp fields in the University of Northern Colorado. That tells you how long I've been doing it.
Yeah. Now his dad's the coach at University of Northern Colorado.
Yeah, correct.
All the boys had successful careers. Mom was a hell of an athlete. Christian's been on the podcast too. So, it's just a full circle thing here.
How'd you get Christian on?
Honestly, it's funny though. How'd I get Christian on? I want to come on your podcast. Great. So
he said that?
Yeah. So we're talking back and forth. And then he's in the training room one day. He's like, well, why don't you not have me on your podcast? I'm like, check your phone. So he goes back to his phone. And he's like, chirping me from across the room in the training room. This is like a month, 2 months ago. Checks his phone, texts from me. Hey, when are you coming on the podcast? He never got back to me. So that was a win. And then he came on the next week. It was great. He was unreal. He's never opened up. I don't know if he's opened up about his personal training routine, how he handles things, his philanthropy, everything. I shouldn't say he's never opened up like that, but it was really cool for me. And kind of like what we're doing now, we're having more of a conversation than probably an interview. So I get to ask him like, hey, what are you doing for training camp? And I actually changed some of my training based off what he does. So,
I mean, what a great guy! What a great family!
Yeah, tremendous.
And
tremendous.
they're pros.
Any good stories from Denver over those years? They won back-to-back Super Bowls while you covered the team. There had to be some good, fun party stories that you can tell on the podcast.
Party stories, not
not about party, but what I'm saying, exciting, or some good ones. There's got to be some good ones in the Rolodex that you tell.
Well, if we're going to talk about being at training camp, the one that always comes to mind is, I've tried to be a healthy eater. And so I loved going to training camp because back then it was much more personal than it is today. I would have breakfast, lunch, and dinner with the players every single meal. And training camp lasted like 3.5, 4 weeks. So I would go up to Greeley roughly July 17 and come back like August 15. And I was up there like you were gone. So I'd like to say, I had friends who would, get summer shares in the Hamptons and some who would drive into the mountains. And I got a dorm room in Greeley, Colorado, and on the University of Northern Colorado campus. And I love the food there. I could eat with the team. I could eat healthy. I didn't have to pay for it. You know, the newspaper paid for it, but for me, it was free. And so the director of dining services at the University of Northern Colorado was a gentleman by the name of Hal Brown, really nice guy. And I remember one day you'd walk in, you know, you'd have, I can still see it today, the salad bar to your left, and they'd have a dessert bar to your right, and they'd have cold cut station in the back and hot food, and you go pick what you want. Probably not as health conscious today as it was then, or not as health conscious then as it is today, but it was still geared towards healthy. And so I remember on the dessert bar this one day, there was a sign that said Giant Health Cookies. And I'm like, what's better than a Giant Health cookie? Let me taste one. So I take this Giant Health cookie, I take a bite. I'm like, this might be one of the greatest cookies I've ever had in my life. And I devoured that Giant Health cookie, devoured it. So good that I went back to take another and ate that, right? I mean, it's healthy. So I went over to Hal Brown as I was leaving that day, and I said, Hal, what is in those Giant Health cookies? And he goes, health cookies? Heath cookies. Somebody put an extra L in the side, and I thought they were Giant Health cookies when they were Giant Heath cookies.
Oh man, the calorie content. So it's good. You needed the energy. You're a training camp. You're burning cows, you know, covering the team. John Elway. You got to keep up with the Broncos.
Nobody needs 2 Giant Heath cookies, Colin. That you don't need that. Okay, one would have been enough.
Yeah, one would have been enough for sure. 2 more quick questions, and we'll let you go. Adam Schefter again joining us. This interview is brought to you by Wealth Advisory Services. So, Adam, there's so many things I want to ask you, but you know, just for the sake of time, in Denver, you know, what was covering back-to-back Super Bowls like?
That was unreal. You know, I love that. I think some reporters, they don't want their teams to win because they want the season to end so they go home. I always wanted that team to do well. I always felt like the better they did, the better it would be for my career. The more exposure I would have to people, more experiences I would have. I always wanted to cover a Super Bowl champion. And when the Broncos went to their first Super Bowl, it was so important to me. I remember leaving on my voicemail, hey, it's Adam. You know, I'm going to be busy for the next 2 weeks for the Super Bowl. Leave a message and I'll try to get back to you afterwards. Like, that was the day when you didn't have cell phones, like I said. But that's how important it was to me. I would wake up at night, you know, dreaming about the games. Like, I loved it, lived it. You're out in Colorado by yourself. It was that important to me. It meant a ton. And when they won their first Super Bowl, it was so cool to see people that you spent so much time with, that you covered on a day-to-day basis, that you knew professionally. I didn't know them as well personally, but I knew them professionally. To see them get the glory and recognition that they did, I loved seeing it. It was just awesome. So that was a tremendous thrill. My senior year at Michigan, Michigan won the national championship in basketball about 2-3 weeks before I graduated. And I always thought that was the greatest thing. But I would say that Denver winning the Super Bowl, it rivaled it. It really did, because it was so personal to me. So I love seeing it. And they went back to back, and it was great. And there are so many things that I remember. And even today, I see people that I used to cover doing various things. And that was a very special time in my life.
Best piece of advice you can give to people entering your field now?
Well, the field is changing all the time. It's different. I know that, you know, first of all, I never did TV on a full-time basis until I was, I would have been 40, almost 40 years old. Can that be right? No, that can't be right. 2004, born in 66, 34, 37, 38 years old. So, you know, some people, I mean, there's a lot of ways you can answer that question, but they just want to be on TV. And I spent almost 15, 16 years in newspapers. And that was a great training ground because it teaches you to think succinctly and be sparse with the words you use and choose. And it was just, and it taught me how to build relationships. I tell everybody I went to Michigan undergrad, I went to Northwestern grad school, as you mentioned, but I really got my master's in covering the NFL from the Denver Broncos in Denver. It was great to just see how that all operated. And it was a lot more personal then. Like, if you have people covering the Carolina Panthers, I guarantee you they're not sleeping in the dorm room next to you for a month and eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner with you and being on the practice field and going over and talk to you whenever you want. There are rules, restrictions, more people. It's not, you probably don't have a close relationship like that with almost anybody in the media, I would venture to say, right?
No, you're almost pushed out.
Correct. They don't want they want the media around, but they want them at a distance.
Yeah.
And with me, when I covered it, there really was no distance. It was,
and that was across the NFL period. That's just not in Carolina. That's across everywhere you've been.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I've done nothing against Carolina. No.
Yeah.
The sport is so big, you know. It's more impersonal for the media than it was when I covered it starting in 1990.
We'll finish up with this. The man I never met. Talk about the book. Talk about your family. I just purchased it on Amazon. I can't wait to read it during training camp.
Oh, you haven't read it, huh?
No, I'm excited to read it though.
Well, I hope you like it. You'll have to shoot me a text after you read it and let me know what you thought of it. You know, listen, we on the 15-year anniversary of 9/11, we did a piece that ran on ESPN about my wife's late husband. My wife lost her husband on 9/11. And it was an idea that I pitched to ESPN on the 10-year anniversary of 9/11. I'm like, hey, would love to do a feature on my wife's late husband. And they said, okay, let us think about it. And they got back and they're like, yeah, we're going to pass. And then literally out of nowhere, 5 years later, they reached out to me and they said, yeah, well, you know, we'd like to revisit that. I'm like, okay. And I really didn't even know what it was going to be. But the piece ran on opening day, September 11th, 2000, and it would have been 16. And I never had a reaction to anything that I've done professionally like I did after that piece, because when I got back to my computer, emails were pouring in and texts were pouring in. If you haven't seen the piece, you could just Google it. Just do Adam Schefter 9/11 tribute, ESPN, right? It comes up. And so it just generated a tremendous response that I did not expect. And so when that happened, there were a couple people like, hey, you should write a book on that. I'm like, I don't know what we do on that. Oh, okay, well, I brought aboard a guy that I had tremendous respect for, Michael Rosenberg. He helped me out an awful lot, did a lot of the writing. You know, I gave him my journal. I keep a journal. Gave him a bunch of the interviews I had done for that piece. He was able to kind of cull it all together and write. Send me edits, I'd edit, I'd add in. And there was the book. I mean, the book kind of took care of itself, I guess, from the video piece. It was an outgrowth of a story that ran on ESPN is really what it was. Wasn't expecting the TV story to be what it was. Wasn't expecting it to turn into a book, but that's where it all came in.
Yeah, it is a fantastic piece. I remember watching it. Maybe it was live 2016. I'm trying to think.
Opening day 2016.
Yeah, that'd be my senior year at Temple. Yep.
Yeah.
So we watched it, and of course, I'm sure we were. And yeah, I've seen it before. I rewatched it of late too. So Adam, I can't thank you enough for coming on. I know you're a busy man. Adam just got off of NFL Live for everybody, by the way. So you could see behind when you guys watch it.
I'm getting ready for the 6 o'clock Sports Center. Yeah, there we go. And my wife popped in to let me know that her parents are having dinner here tonight. So they're in the house right now somewhere. So that's the beauty of working from home, right? You just get to do NFL Live and 6 o'clock Sports Center and walk out and have dinner with your family.
That is nice. When are you going back into the office, if you're ever going back?
I have a few dates in Bristol this summer. I've not spent a full workday in Bristol since the pandemic began in March of 2020. I'll be there Saturday, July 31st for the day. So that'll be the next time, but not many trips to Bristol anymore, the way it has shaken out. So.
All right. Well, if you need
Hey, Colin, good luck in camp. Good luck in camp. All right.
Thanks, man.
Good luck making the roster. I'm sure you have an excellent chance to stick around. Just keep being you, right?
That's it, man.
Send my regards to Christian and Coach Rule. Good man.
Yes, he is. I'm very lucky to play for him, play with Christian. Yeah, Sam Darnold. You probably know Sam Darnold a little bit too. Who else do I need to say hi for you, Adam?
Let's say you could say hello to Sam. You could say hello to Matt Rule. You could say hello to Christian.
AJ Boy, yeah, he's a big name.
I don't know AJ that well. I don't know him.
Yeah.
I mean, I know,
obviously,
of course,
yeah.
But to know somebody where you've met them, you've spoken with them. Robbie Anderson, I know Robbie.
Yep.
Nice guy. I like Robbie.
Yeah, he's a character.
Let's see who else. I'm just trying to think. Greg Olson was a friend of mine while he played there, is a friend of mine.
Yeah.
He's a great guy.
I'm looking forward to meeting him. I still haven't met him. So
what a man that guy is. Oof.
Yeah.
He's impressive. He's an impressive individual.
Yeah, I know you did a little Father's Day thing for him. I'm looking forward to listening to that.
Yeah, he's great. He's great.
Yeah.
So you got some good men there in Carolina.
Yeah, we were lucky. I'm glad I was able to meet you on Zoom. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person whenever that happens. And we'll circle back at the end of training camp.
And you know who else I know in Carolina? One other one, Colin Thompson.
Oh, wow.
Good guy.
Wow. Just going for the hearts of everyone listening here as we wrap up. Adam Schefter, thanks so much, man.
Hey, Colin, appreciate having me. Thank you very much.